Hello, welcome to this hour of The Absolute Truth. We begin with some good news. In just one raid, ICE reported to have recovered 14 kids, most those unaccompanied minors, and a California marijuana grow. Children saying that these children were exploited for profit in fields, factories, and now marijuana farms, with over 300,000 children still missing. I said we must arrest criminal sponsors and rescue the kids. So in other words, all those unaccompanied minors that former President Autopin, aka Joe Biden, led into the country during his shambolic administration are being used as slave labor, and worse, as you can imagine. A recent Department of Homeland Security investigation into the criminal phenomenon of unaccompanied minors entering the country illegally found that after meeting with more than 140 individuals from DHS and other federal agencies, DHS determined U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, cannot effectively monitor the location and status of all unaccompanied alien children once released or transferred from DHS and the Health and Human Services Department custody. During the Biden administration, ICE transferred more than 448,000 UACs to HHS. Most were released to sponsors. However, more than 31,000 of the 448,000 children's released addresses were blank, undeliverable, or missing apartment numbers. ICE also was not always aware of the location for UACs who fled HHS custody. Now, when he's not going on major podcasts to spread Baghdad bomb levels of Democrat Party propaganda, California Governor Gavin Newsom's beloved marijuana growing farms are being implicated in this massive child slavery scheme. Trump border czar Tom Homan said recently that his agents are dedicated to finding these missing children. Listen.
We're looking for over 300,000 missing children. We've already found 10,000. Have you heard that anywhere? No, the media is simply not covering it. And look, this should be a nonpartisan issue. Arresting public safety threats and national security threats, everybody be all the same page on that. Rescuing children, I mean, it should be a nonpartisan issue. Everybody should be in lockstep on that, but they're not. The media's lying. The Democrats they don't want President Trump to be successful. I got news for them. We are being successful. Every illegal alien public safety threat we arrest makes this country safer. Every national security threat we take off the street and deport makes us safer. And we're rescuing thousands of children.
We're now joined by DHS whistleblower Tara Lee Rodas. She is one of the people who has worked hardest on alerting people to the problem of the missing children, but also helping our government under new leadership now recover them. I say it's positive news, Tara, because these children were rescued, but Lord knows what happened to them before they were rescued. Not only were they being forced to work in these fields during the day, right? So that's labor trafficking, but we now understand as well that they were sex trafficked in the evening and at night. I can't fathom that this happens in our country, but there is positive news, like I said, from Trump DHS and Tom Homan, because they have found thousands of children.
Yes. So, Emerald, thanks so much for having me on your show to talk about the crisis of the missing children. As we know, this should be running on every media outlet in the nation. This should be like a global phenomenon of the greatest humanitarian crisis of our time, which is missing children, many of them tender age, meaning under the age of 12. It is just appalling that we are finding children, that the United States government is finding children in marijuana grows. This is unacceptable, and it is positive news that some children are being found. And I know that the administration absolutely is going to go after these kids.
According to reports, they're drugging babies at the border and sneaking them in with adults who are not their parents. Is this still happening, or was that just before, during the Biden years?
So under the Biden administration, they stopped DNA testing. So I hope your listeners understand that. The Biden administration stopped DNA testing to see if children were actually with their parents. That is inexcusable, unacceptable. And the new staff with new policies at HHS, that is one of the first things that they reinstated was DNA testing. So they have put in 5 new policies,
That's great.
and one of those is DNA testing. They are absolutely going to be sure that if a family unit comes across the border, that it is indeed a family unit. We've got to protect these children.
Tara, there's several different numbers floating around. I think about a week ago, Tom Homan suggested they found 10,000 kids. Clay Higgins said in a hearing, I believe it was yesterday, the congressman from Louisiana, that there were 35,000 kids being found. Do we have exact numbers yet, or is that still perhaps being confirmed?
So that's probably being confirmed. What I do know is that if I had access to the UC portal, or if Aaron had access, we could tell you what the exact numbers are. So we're hoping that soon there are going to be more people who have access to the data who are going to be able to confirm the exact numbers of how many have been found. What we do know and what we did see was those 10 who were rescued. Now, what's very interesting about that photo, and if the commissioner is listening, I hope he is, what would have made that photo fantastic is to have the sponsor of each of those children standing next to the child in handcuffs. So here is the real question, because as we find the children, we can never forget the mission is to arrest traffickers and dismantle their trafficking infrastructure. So what we need to do now is use a government-wide data analytics approach to target these sponsors. And this is, Aaron Stevenson, we had conversations with people in the administration prior to the election, and this is the way to go after it. And I hope that soon, and maybe they already have started, which is why they're finding many, but we need to see criminal sponsors in handcuffs. That's what we need to see. And why we're not seeing that yet, I don't know. If you recall, in early 2021, it was Aaron Stevenson who revealed that MS-13, 18th Street Gang, and other cartels were getting the kids. And then I saw the same thing in August, reported that. Senator Grassley released all of those files. Anybody can go see. I said, do not release to MS-13 affiliates. And they sent the children there anyway. So we know that children right now are in the hands of criminals. We must get these public safety threats off the street. So we need to remember, as we're going after the children, we must go after the sponsors. Must go after the sponsors. Perp walks, handcuffs, the whole thing.
Media attention, plaster their face all over every media that will cover the story. Have we had confirmed arrests? I'll be honest, there's so much going on. I haven't seen that. How many confirmed sponsors have they arrested?
So they haven't given us an exact number of how many confirmed arrests, but yes, they have confirmed arrests. Stephen Miller told the case, a very sad story of a 14-year-old unaccompanied minor who was living with 2 men who had been pimping her out. This administration recovered this 14-year-old pregnant, and we don't know for how many years she had been being pimped out. It's just like these children on the marijuana grow. Someone said, I've heard people say, well, they're like 14 and 15. Okay, well, did they cross the border in 2021 and they've been slaves since they were 10? Like, people need to think this through. These children, we have no idea the horrors of what they're going through. In the daytime, like you said, they're picking marijuana, which they are not supposed to be doing. But then in the nighttime, who knows what they're being used for? This is not acceptable. This is not acceptable. How is it that in the United States of America, we have children who are working on marijuana grows? No, this is totally unacceptable and completely unavoidable. And this administration is going to put a stop to it. They are fiercely committed to not only rescuing the kids, but also getting these criminal sponsors.
You said that if you had access to the database that you could help confirm the number. Is that an offer of help to the administration? Are you willing to go in and help with this effort?
I
More?
I
You already
have
are. I
offered
know.
to help with the effort. So, as you might know, I have not stopped helping with the effort. So I continue to fight on, as does Aaron, and we are helping the administration in any way that we can. And
Great.
we do believe that they are going to get people actually trained up on what the data looks like, how to use the data,
Mhm.
how to match the data from various data sets across the government. I mean, all you would have to do is just take the A number of the child from the HHS data, compare it to the EOIR data, which is at DHS, and that would tell you how many of the children actually showed up to their immigration hearing. So just like that, with the click of two buttons, you could see in a minute how many people, how many children didn't show up. Well, children who don't show up to their immigration hearing are typically, that's a red flag for sponsoring, for being, trafficked. It's a red flag for trafficking. So there are things that are so simple that could be done. You take the
Mm.
sponsors, take the data right from the HHS database, you match that against some very interesting databases over at DHS, and you're going to see, oh, these 97 people are MS-13. Oh, these 43 people are Tren-de-Aragua. You would have high value targets to go after in just one day. So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that they're going to use a government-wide data analytics approach, and we're going to see huge arrests and huge recoveries of children.
I'm encouraged to hear you say that it's actually quite simple if you know what you're looking at, because I would think it would have to be extremely overwhelming just as a layperson on the outside with the kind of numbers that we're talking about and the missing information. I look at it as very overwhelming. So it's encouraging that you say with the right direction and knowledge of how to look at that information, they can be found. I do want to broach another subject that is somewhat related. Our own Allison Steinberg, our DC correspondent, did a kind of man on the street interview chasing down Florida Congresswoman Maria Salazar, who is advocating for amnesty for illegals who've been in the country for 5 years or more. So that will include those that came across the Biden border. Take a listen to how that exchange went.
What is your stance? What would you like to do with the illegal aliens who are let in illegally under Joe Biden? Should they get citizenship here?
We're talking dignity is not amnesty, and we're talking about those who have been here for more than 5 years. We are talking dignity is for the people who have been here for more than 5 years. They're working, they're paying taxes, and they do not have any criminal record. And those are the people that President Trump said that were needed: construction, hospitality, network. Do not have a criminal record. They're needed in the slaughterhouses and the dairies and the fisheries, because the economy of this country after the BPV needs hands. And they're here. So make them pay taxes, a fine, 1% of their salary, and they can have dignity, not amnesty.
Sounds a bit like amnesty to me, but my concern is that she said no criminal record, that some of these people who perhaps even traffic children could slip through the cracks of such provisions offered by her suggested legislation.
So I think people are going to need to look very carefully at the legislation. They're going to have to see and ensure who this actually covers, right? And then decide if this is the best move forward. But we
Yeah,
cannot
that's good advice.
be giving privileges in this country to criminals, to traffickers, and to members of transnational criminal organizations who we know are operating here. And I do believe Border Czar Tom Homan is going to ensure, because this is his mission, get public safety threats off the street. And I'm hopeful they're going to be walking in lockstep together for whatever legislation they decide on moving forward.
I do too. Look, We have to find those kids. We have to protect our kids, and we have to. I mean, look, I'm not for her legislation altogether, but we'll talk about that. That's not really relevant per se to this conversation. But Tara, I thank you for the update. We'll work to confirm those numbers. We'll keep our eye on this. No matter what, there are some wins happening. I would too like to see more perp walks. So we'll ask Tom Homan about that the next time he's on the North Lawn. One of our correspondents will ask him, when are we going to see perp walks of these sponsors who traffic the children, these fake sponsors? Thank you so much, Tara Lee Rodas. It's always good to catch up with you.
Thank you so much, Emerald. It's always an honor. And let's save the kids and let's put those fraudulent sponsors in handcuffs.
Yes, let's. Coming up, remember a couple of years ago we did a story on the potential mortgage fraud allegedly being committed by Adam Schiff? Well, fast forward 2 years later, and President Trump himself is talking about it. The man behind that story, John Stubbins, joins us next.
Swollen limbs, joint pain, inflammation, skin aging, and cognitive decline. These are just a few of the awful side effects that you can experience due to poor blood circulation. And popping ibuprofen is not a solution to the pain. It's only temporary relief, and it's only masking the true problem, which is inflammation. Researchers are saying to add this Antarctic super nutrient to your diet. I'm talking about omega-3 fatty acids, but not just any form of omegas. These particular omega-3 fatty acids are sourced from wild-caught krill. Has been shown to support healthy blood pressure, circulation, brain health, as well as reduce inflammation, swelling, and joint pain. For a limited time, you can grab Native Path Antarctic Krill Oil for up to 66% off plus free shipping. Just go to getkrill.com/Lindell right now to get your special offer.
Looks very serious. And Adam looks very serious. Look, he's a sleazeball. Everybody knows it. And I was a little surprised. I thought he would have covered his bases a little bit better. Adam Schiff is a lowlife. He deserves what he gets.
What President Trump was referring to was the fact that Senator Adam Schiff of California, longtime bitter foe of President Trump, purveyor of the Russiagate hoax, has potentially committed mortgage fraud. Here's President Trump lambasting Schiff recently on his Truth Social account, saying, quote, "I learned that Fannie Mae's Financial Crimes Division has concluded that Adam Schiff has engaged in a sustained pattern of possible mortgage fraud. Adam Schiff said that his primary residence was in Maryland to get a cheaper mortgage and rip off America, when he must live in California because he was a congressman from California." He added, quote, "I always knew Adam Schiff was a crook." The fraud began with the refinance of his Maryland property on February the 6th, 2009, and continued through multiple transactions until the Maryland property was correctly designated as a second home on October 13th, 2020. Mortgage fraud is very serious, and crooked Adam Schiff, now a senator, needs to be brought to justice. As a result of this longtime mortgage fraud being uncovered by dogged investigators, Schiff faces a criminal referral to Trump's Department of Justice. This from a man who has made his entire political career build on the notion that he was as pure as the wind-driven snow compared to the alleged corruption of President Donald Trump. Well, here's another case of left-wing projection on display. It turns out that none of the corruption the left accused President Trump of was true, whereas there's a whole bunch of corruption with them. We're now joined by John Stubbins. He's the host of the Indivisible podcast, who originally broke the story of Schiff's obscene corruption and hypocrisy. John, you've been on this case for a long time, and you kept trying to tell people about it, right? You gave the information to Congress, if I recall correctly. So somebody, it seems, passed that along, and finally we might see some accountability for Schiff.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Emerald. God bless you, my friend. Before I get started, I just want to say your last guest, give her my number. I'm working very closely with Tom and his team, the Borders Our team. And yes, the answer to that is we are going to be coming down on these people very hard. but we can only get
Okay.
so many per day. So just hang in there, folks.
Sure.
We're coming after these people. Okay. Now on to Adam Schiff. So yes, we did file an ethics complaint last year with the House, which was flagged several times. It went to legal oversight. They did nothing. And I'm not surprised by that, because we believe that there are other members in the House that are compromised, and that they'll talk big in front of the cameras about Adam Schiff, but when it comes time to actually do something, we gave them the opportunity. We laid it in their basket. All they had to do was bring us in to testify in front of the committee, lay out the evidence, and Schiff would have been finished. But they wouldn't do that. So the question is why? Fast forward, Schiff runs for Senate because his time in the House is basically over, because he has already been censured, which everybody knows. So he runs for Senate so that he can regain some semblance of power, because he doesn't have it in the House anymore. So he wins the senatorial race out in California, and here he is sitting in the U.S. Senate right now. He's not legally allowed to be there. Okay? Everything that President Trump said in his statement is 100% accurate. Everything you said, 100% accurate. But here's the topper. That's not everything. The mortgage fraud is only one piece of this. This is theft. This is homeowners insurance fraud. This is voter fraud. All of these combined. We've got this guy on at least 5 felony counts. Okay? There is no excuse for them not to bring us in. And I'm making a plea to President Trump: get a hold of me. I will lay out everything for you. Get me a U.S. attorney to take up the case that my investigative partner, Chris Bish, filed with the FHFA, which was just handed down as a criminal referral, which you mentioned, okay, by the main man over there, Pulte. I think his name is Pulte. So Pulte filed the criminal referral based on my friend Chris and our investigation, giving him everything on a silver platter. But the only portion that Pulte can make the criminal referral on is just the mortgage fraud, not the other 4 pieces that we have. This is a whole deal. So we need a U.S. attorney to prosecute Schiff on the whole deal, because it goes with the homeowners insurance fraud, the theft, the voter fraud. It's all together. Okay? So my plea is for someone out there who's got guts to get on the phone with President Trump and have him call me, and I'll lay it all out for him, and he's going to love it, because we've got him, and we've got his wife as well, because his wife, she signed everything that Adam Schiff did, and it's all falsified.
Yeah, I wish we had those pull up, because I remember you sending me those documents. I've seen those documents when we originally did the story, and yes, her name is on them there in plain black and white. The question is, the criminal referral was sent by Bill Pulte, as you noted,
Right.
but will Trump's DOJ actually prosecute? Because, as you said,
I need a U.S. attorney who can't be bought. Okay, give me Janine Pirro. Give me somebody over there that's got guts, that's not going to back down to Adam Schiff or anybody else because they're compromised. We've got too many people in our Congress right now that are compromised, some fashion or another. It might be through Act Blue. It might be through the Russia hoax. It might be Schiff. Who knows what their deal is? But I can tell you this. I put this in the lap of Jim Jordan, and he did nothing. Nothing. Okay. I want to thank Byron Donalds, because Byron Donalds is the only congressman that helped me to get it over there. Okay. And this is after John Solomon, Peter Schweitzer, Seamus Bruner. Everybody looked at this. They all said, John, this investigation's complete. You and Chris have done your homework. You've got everything. So what's the holdup?
I mean, we can just add that to the long list of actions that Jim Jordan has not taken. And the whistleblowers from the FBI know that Jim Jordan very well. And we mentioned that there's probably other Democrats. We know that Letitia James, the Attorney General in New York, is accused of very similar mortgage fraud and is facing her own legal woes as a result, though it's still, unknown if she'll actually have accountability for that as well. But I suspect it was a Republican-led Congress that did nothing with the information you gave them. I suspect it's not just Democrats who are correct.
That's right. That's right. And also Mosby. Right? Isn't Mosby also guilty of this as well?
I don't know that specific situation, but perhaps.
Okay. But yeah, you're right, Emerald. It's Republicans as well, because look, we sent it over to the House Ethics Committee. They flagged it twice. They sent it to legal oversight. They flagged it twice, and they just drugged their butts through the election and did nothing. All they had to do was bring us in, and it would have been done. But they refused to do it. Why? So, that being said, I need President Trump's help. If President Trump will call me, him and I can figure out how to get somebody over there. He just appointed Jeanine Pirro. Let's get Jeanine Pirro on the case.
Yeah, let's get Judge Jeanine on the case. I think this would be one that she would really enjoy prosecuting. Thank you so much, John. Like I said, I've got a list going of the things Jim Jordan did not do. That includes being presented with evidence of election fraud that he also ignored and did nothing about. Jim Jordan will have to answer one day for all of these serious national security issues that he ignored, that he should have addressed. And this is just another one of them. Thank you so much, John.
And Emma, let me just say this. He's my congressman. He's my congressman in Ohio. He wouldn't come on my show. He wouldn't pick up the phone and call me. All of his aides had the information. They did nothing.
Yeah. Well, usually the aides will call you and say, this isn't exactly right, and try to talk you down, or call your friends and have them try to talk you down. I'm not surprised he wouldn't come on your show. He came on mine one time. But yeah, hasn't come back on. Thank you so much, John Stubbins. Well, keep us posted. I do have a feeling that you will hear from President Trump. I honestly do. I feel like this segment will make its way over there, as many of the others have, and people hear from him directly, because it will probably take direct action and direction from President Trump. That's what we've seen in many other situations in this administration, this second term, that something wasn't getting done, and it took direct involvement from the president himself, when it shouldn't have had to have, right? These people should have already been handling it, but he's had to step in, and then we see action. And we're also waiting for that on the part of more election fraud investigations and such as well. Thank you so much, John.
I'm here to help. I'm here to help, Emerald.
You know what? I absolutely know that's true about you, John. That's the absolute truth. We'll see you soon.
God bless you.
Up next, with our wounded warriors, you can't always see the wounds. Sometimes it's a wound of the mind. We talk about that with Tyler Gray. He's not only a veteran himself, but he also played one on a very popular show on TV, so you're not going to want to miss this segment after the break.
Whether it's being a weekend warrior or spending time with your family, feeling your best is the key to doing the things you love. That's why I'm excited to tell you about Nirvanta. It's a natural solution designed to help you stay active and live well naturally. Nirvanta is a topical blend of all natural essential oils like frankincense, myrrh, and a proprietary gold standard plant stock extract. It's perfect for your hands, feet, knees, back, or anywhere else that needs a little extra care. Use Nirvanta proactively as part of your daily maintenance routine, and you're guaranteed you're going to feel the difference. Simply massage Nirvanta in for at least 60 seconds, 2 to 3 times a day to get the best results. And if you're not completely satisfied, you get your money back. No questions asked. There's simply no risk and no reason not to try Nirvanta today. Right now, you get 15% off with code Lindell exclusively at nirvantahealth.com. So stop reaching out for that medicine cabinet. Get Nirvanta instead and experience the difference. Go to nirvantahealth.com. Use code Lindell to get 15% off today. Nirvanta Health. Live well naturally.
During Trump's first term, some of his great successes included reforming Veterans Affairs and prioritizing our country's retired servicemen and women. I remember talking at length with former VA Secretary Robert Wilkie in interviews at the time about the president's desire to honor America's heroes by ensuring they received proper care and benefits. In that same vein, but to little fanfare, Trump 47's VA announced last week a temporary expansion of burial benefits for certain veterans and their families, according to the Dole Act. Veterans who receive VA health care are not always eligible for a VA-covered burial, resulting in the families having to then cover the cost upon their deaths. Now, this benefit from the Dole Act will mean eligible veterans will have their full burial costs covered. Current Veterans Affairs Secretary Doug Collins said this in a press release saying, quote, VA is working hard to fully implement the many provisions of the Dole Act. We're excited to offer this expanded benefit, which better supports veterans who choose to spend their final days at home, surrounded by their loved ones. And in more positive news for veterans, the Senate just passed the VA home loan program in a rare bipartisan move. The new law will help veterans who have fallen behind on their mortgage payments by moving those missed payments to the back of their loan term, making their loan current so they can then start paying again, and by doing so, avoid foreclosure. The missed payments will get paid down according to reporting the road when they refinance, sell their home, or they've paid off their mortgage. Now, I know if you've watched this show for years, I've often talked about my experience in talking with President Trump directly in off-the-record conversations. And I can tell you there probably wasn't one of those off-the-records that I sat in that President Trump didn't mention our wounded warriors. And I would specifically remember how concerned he would see in his face. You could tell it actually kept him up at night. And he would say, you know, some wounds you don't see with the naked eye. He would say, there are wounds here with perfectly men, because you know I love to use the word perfect. He said that you would look at them and they were central casting. But inside here, they were hurting, and it was hurting their families. And one veteran knows that better than anyone. In fact, he's written the book on it. Tyler Gray is the author of Forged in Chaos, a warrior's origin story. He's a leading advocate for veterans' mental health. He specializes in PTSD and traumatic brain injury. He developed the LTSD theory, which explains chaos addiction and the neurological rewiring that occurs over time in order to help veterans better understand their struggles. And not only is Tyler a real combat veteran, but he also played a special forces guy on TV. You might recognize him from a very popular CBS Paramount Plus show.
Danger close, how copy?
Copy all, Bravo 4. Target is marked with blue and orange smoke.
Chickens in the pot, Jack. Cook it.
And Tyler Gray joins us now. Tyler, it's a pleasure to meet you. You're actually the second person I now know from that show. I've known Judd Lorman for years.
Oh yeah, good old Judd. I just saw him about a month ago. Yeah, Judd's a riot. It was a great opportunity to work with him for 8 years and spend time with such a great cast and crew.
Yeah, and the cast and crew, it seems, all have a special heart for the veterans and service members that they, portray on screen. Now, you're unique in that you were one of those people who was an actual veteran, and I am interested in hearing more about your theory. And I suspect President Donald Trump would be as well. I am honest in saying I don't remember a time that I went and sat down with him. You know how you'll get to sit with the president and have these off the record conversations, that he wouldn't mention the mental wounds that come from battle. And he would say that's what he considers when he looks at potential new conflicts. He actually thinks of those particular wounded warriors. Tell us about your theory.
So, LTSD came from, for years and years and years, I was told, PTSD. And, PTSD is 4 letters, and it's very difficult, in my opinion, in 4 letters to describe a comprehensive list of different issues. And, you talked about the VA earlier. I think the VA gets a lot of flack. I don't think it's as bad of as an organization as people think it is. I don't think it's mistreating warriors. I think what's happening is that the VA is part of the larger healthcare system, and that healthcare system fundamentally treats symptoms and doesn't cure diseases. And so for me, I was being told that the disease was PTSD, and I'm at the point now where I believe that is merely a symptom. For me, what the disease was post-traumatic stress disorder assumes it assumes a pre-traumatic stress baseline. And what I've seen with warriors is we never had a pre-traumatic stress baseline. For me, I was born and lived as a child in a very chaotic and home environment. And so I never knew a pre-traumatic stress baseline. And so once you're raised in that environment, your brain neurologically rewires itself to be calm in chaos. So LTSD stands for lack of traumatic stress disorder. And what I mean by that is when traumatic stress was in the environment, when the environment was chaos, my mind was calm. Conversely, when the environment is calm, the chaos is now in my head. And the way that I calm myself is by creating chaos back into the environment to get my mind back to its homeostasis or default, normal state, because chaos is what I was used to. And that has really hit home for a lot of veterans. And it really explains chaos addiction in a way that hasn't been previously explained.
I think that makes a lot of sense, Tyler, because so many of these combat warriors have a really difficult time reacclimating to domestic life, right? To just, being in America with their families. So what you're explaining makes a lot of sense. The question is, because when a rewiring happens in your brain, it's really tough to unwind that. How do you unwind it? How do you then, again, rewire your brain?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'll say, I'll kind of address the first part very quickly. You talked about so many warriors, myself included. If we were experiencing PTSD from combat, then we would avoid combat. We would avoid thoughts of combat. We would avoid talking about it. And yet that's just not, at least in my experience with combat veterans, we love talking about it. We love thinking about it. We miss it. I miss being overseas. And you hear that common thread all the time. And so PTSD doesn't explain that. LTSD does. And then to the second part of your question is, how do we change that? How do we rewire, for lack of a better term, back? And a critical thing that I discovered is, if you talk to people about, PTSD, they'll tell you it's a mental health issue. You got to process the trauma through talk therapy, all these different things. And I'm not saying those things don't help, but when you have a fundamental rewiring issue, that is a physical issue. And so the way to fix it is you must treat the brain and the body at the same time and work to slowly rewire your brain's natural synapses and connections in the way it was previously doing business, for lack of a better term. And you have to take an integrated approach rather than a fragmented approach, which is sadly what our healthcare system is designed for, unfortunately.
Does the VA address this at all? The fact that there are many
No.
warriors who can't. No.
No, and again, the reason I keep saying this is, I don't see it as their fault. I don't see it as intentional. I see it as the VA is just the healthcare system. The VA is the normal American healthcare system ran by the government for veterans, right? And so it's just a product of that fundamental system that focuses on symptoms and not root causes. And so they haven't addressed this yet. And hopefully with, the book, and I'm going to keep talking about this, hopefully we can start to change the narrative and get the system to focus on the disease and address it rather than the symptoms. And on that note, when you talk about, veteran or first responder suicide rates, PTSD awareness and treatment options are at an all-time high. And yet the problem isn't getting better, it's getting worse. And I think any reasonable person should be able to look at that and go, well, if awareness and treatment is an all-time high and the problem is getting worse, then what we're saying is the problem must not be the problem. And that's the push that I'm trying to do and get people to listen to hopefully change this and be able to help our veterans and first responders.
I hope so too. When I lived in Washington, D.C., I actually lived directly beside Arlington National Cemetery. I'll never forget. It was the first week we were living there, and I was standing out on my balcony, which is a beautiful view, and I heard a gunshot. And I told my husband, and he said, well, it might have been a veteran suicide because it happens quite often in the cemetery. And that just gutted me. I mean, it's so sad. And it's an issue that, though I know there's lots of effort to talk about it, and there's, Veteran Suicide Prevention Month, and we do cover it, there's not enough covering of it because there's still a very high rate. I hope, Tyler, that you get an opportunity to brief relevant members of the Trump administration on your LTSD theory, and perhaps they can open up doors to implementing some of this care. I agree with you. I think it's more a product of the healthcare system at large that we have that tends to treat symptoms and not root causes. But I suspect that's something you would probably like to do, right? Go in and brief perhaps Veterans Affairs and talk about your theory and give them copies of your book.
That is my ultimate end state. I really, and again, this book was written, probably a year and a half now ago. And then when everything happened with the election and the new administration, I've been very excited and very hopeful that I can try and get this message to them. And hopefully they can, if they think there has merit to it, which I think they will, especially Mr. Hegseth, based on his experience. I'm sure it'll resonate with him, and hopefully we can start to change the narrative and really to start, fixing these issues by working on the fixing the root cause issues and help our veterans and first responders.
I believe it would resonate with him as well. And I know based on my personal experience with President Trump, I know it would resonate with him. The book is Forged in Chaos, A Warrior's Origin Story. You can get it anywhere books are sold. Tyler Gray, it's such a pleasure to meet you. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Up next, some good news on positive action in one aspect of the DOJ. We're going to tell you about a DOJ task force to enforce the First Step Act that was passed in President Trump's first term. But it's happening because of the grassroots effort of J6ers behind the scenes. One of those J6ers, Brian Mock, joins us after the commercials.
With everybody talking about making America healthy again, I thought today'd be a great day to talk to all my fellow patriots about the importance of making your homes healthy again. Well, we have proudly partnered with airwaterhealing.com and their revolutionary whole home air purification system. The V3 from Air Water Healing does 3,000 square feet of purification. It eliminates dust, mold, viruses, and odors. But here's the part I love. They require no filters to ever be changed and virtually no maintenance. Whether you suffer from asthma, allergies, seasonal bronchitis, or just want to protect your family from the flu or even greater threats, don't wait to get your V3 from airwaterhealing.com today. Use code Lindell for 20% off in savings and free shipping. That's promo code Lindell at airwaterhealing.com.
During President Trump's first term, he passed a major prison reform legislation known as the First Step Act. The First Step Act required the Attorney General to develop a risk and needs assessment system to be used by the Bureau of Prisons to assess the recidivism risk and criminogenic needs of all federal prisoners, and to replace prisoners in recidivism reducing programs and productive activities to address their needs and reduce this risk. Under this act, the system provided guidance on the type, amount, and intensity of recidivism reduction programming and productive activities to which each prisoner is assigned, including information on which programs prisoners should participate in based on their criminogenic needs. The system also provided guidance on how to group, to the extent practicable, prisoners with similar risk levels together in recidivism reduction programming and housing assignments. Our next guest, Brian Mock, a wrongfully imprisoned political protester who was arrested on January 6th, freed himself from the vile grips of the Biden regime by using the First Step Act to his advantage. Now, Brian and others have successfully lobbied the Trump administration's Bureau of Prisons to form a task force to begin accessing the cases of those J6ers who remain in prison to see if they too can be liberated from the broken prison system of the United States. And Brian Mock joins us now. Brian, I just want to clarify though, I think this will benefit more than J6ers, right? This task force, because what you all learned, and you're not the only J6er who flagged this, you were the J6er that did something about it. Was that the First Step Act wasn't being implemented at all, right?
Yeah, that was the question. So thanks for having me on, first off, or back, I guess. As we had talked originally about this issue, you were one of the few who really knew about the First Act, having seen it actually get signed into law. And so the whole idea was, hey, look, we need to get low-level offenders out of federal prison. We spend $45,000 a year as taxpayers to have these people in. And so Congress got behind this. This was passed, I don't know the exact percent, but virtually everybody voted for this. Trump signed it into law. And basically over 7 years, it was not implemented properly, if at all in some cases. And mine was the first case on January 3rd that we successfully got it back into the courts and argued for earned time credits. And I proved that I should have been released months earlier. And the DOJ actually recently fired AUSA Michael Gordon, came in and argued that there were thousands of people in prison, that I wasn't unique. And if the judge ruled in my favor, it would open a Pandora's box to where now all these people could be freed. So that's really what sparked off my mission to leave Minnesota, travel across the country to 28 different states, the District of Columbia, meet with dozens of lawmakers, the DOJ, members of the BOP, a whole bunch of people in Washington, and advocate for this change. And it's starting to come to fruition now.
I just caught what you said. So the AUSA Gordon essentially admitted that the DOJ and the Bureau of Prisons were keeping thousands of prisoners wrongfully incarcerated.
Yeah, it's insane that was his arguing point, and it was only going to
really
keep me in
not the
prison.
best and brightest, folks. Sometimes
It's and now the funny thing is the left is now mad that he got fired, and they're on there going, well, it's because he incarcerated Jan Sixers. Like, well, no, could have to do with the way he went about it, but the fact that he admitted to a conspiracy to keep thousands of people illegally in prison might have had something to do with why he was fired.
Maybe.
just spitballing here.
All right, so let's tell us about this task force, because obviously you have briefed the DOJ. They looked at your investigation. You had briefed me. It's several months ago now. I looked at your information and it was really rock solid. And I found it very interesting because, just as you said, I was there during the signing of the First Step Act. I was there. I got briefed on it multiple times from the administration as a White House correspondent. I talked to the team that worked on it often, and so it was heralded as a, real piece of bipartisan legislation in a rare moment, especially during the Trump years. So the fact that it was not acted upon afterwards, considering Democrats, were largely in support of it as well, I found shocking. So tell us, what do you anticipate from this newly formed task force?
Yeah, well, first off, the best thing I think that we've seen is that Trump has gotten re-energized behind prison reform. So his hiring of Billy Marshall from outside of the Bureau of Prisons and bringing him in, I think, is a testament to the fact that Trump is looking for real reform within the BOP. And then Joshua Smith as deputy director, this is somebody who Trump had pardoned in his first administration. Very successful businessman. He had done time in federal prison, so he knows it from the other side of the fence. And so what we had done is I joined a group, as you know, I'd started my own prison reform group. I actually met someone who had a better one. So I let mine go by the wayside. My ego isn't out of whack. So I went, hey, I found better. I'm joining her. So I joined First Network. And together, they've managed to get into 122 federal facilities. So we have real-time reporting coming from thousands upon thousands of people inside the prisons, family members outside, and workers inside the prisons. So we were able to take all of this information. Once I got to the DOJ, I know this got as far as Ed Martin, if not further. And they looked at it and went, wow, the same information that you saw and even more. They said, this is powerful. I know that this went in meetings that they had with Joshua Smith. And to his credit, he took that and said, okay, a lot of people believe that we are openly being defied in our orders concerning the First Step Act. They don't believe that's happening, but there may be mistakes. And so they've created this task force that's supposed to go into the prisons, essentially audit the process and make sure that people are getting out when they're supposed to get out and not being held, months and years longer than they should. So we're affecting real change. It's exciting to see, and we hope it gets implemented quickly, because I personally get calls daily from people in prison begging me, please do something, get us out of here. When are they changing this? When is it getting fixed? And it can't happen soon enough.
A common theme that I did start to notice across J6ers, as I interviewed so many of them as they would be either headed to prison or when they would come out, I noticed when they would come out, they had such empathy for prisoners. And the First Step Act was actually a little bit controversial on the conservative side when President Trump was trying to pass it. He got some flack from the right about that, saying, well, we need to be tough on crime. But here's an argument explaining improper detention. Let's listen to that, and then we'll wrap it up real quick.
I had a little time in prison. So it's all in the book. But as you surely realize by now, our corrupted government exploited that event as the means to stop me with a 60-day prison sentence. 60 days for a first-time, non-violent misdemeanor trespass charge. Do we know anybody who's been to prison for a misdemeanor? Yeah, just remember that. Prison was every bit as awful as it sounds. In fact, it was worse. Being a non-violent woman, guilty only of giving a First Amendment protected speech, I was of course rated as a minimum security risk, the lowest of 4 possible levels, but I was unexpectedly put into a maximum security federal detention center.
I have to admit, I sort of saw this issue in a different light after hearing and experiencing the stories of J6ers as a journalist and understanding the problems that we really hadn't looked at before. Brian, just real quick, your 30-second wrap up on this.
Sure. Yeah, and thank you for all you've done with the Jan 6ers and exposing this. What we have right now is an opportunity, and something that I'm doing is sending out a questionnaire to all those Jan 6ers who were in prison. So that's going to be coming soon. That's our next report that we're sending off to the DOJ that presumably is going to the BOP. And that's the real opportunity that we have here, you've got a bunch of people who otherwise wouldn't have gone to prison. Doctors, as you just saw, lawyers, teachers, I'm a businessman, everyday people who normally wouldn't be in this situation to come back and report now and go, here's all the systemic issues that need to get fixed in a system that quite frankly is broken. So we welcome the opportunity and want to be used. We're saying use our voice to help those that normally wouldn't have a voice, the lowest amongst us. They need our help, and it's time that we pay attention to those people in a big way.
You're absolutely right. Thank you so much, Brian Mock, for joining us with this very good update, very encouraging update. I'm often blasting the DOJ, so it's nice to applaud them. Thank you for that, Brian Mock. It's good to see you.
You got it right. Thanks, Emerald. You have a good one.